40 to 50% of postmenopausal women will experience a fracture in their lifetime. So postmenopause, that's 50% of women.
Oh
really
my
scary,
God.
isn't it?
Hi there and welcome to Am I Crazy Or? The podcast where I, Lisa Påske, businesswoman, entrepreneur and general troublemaker, take on all the ways that society gaslight us into thinking we are going crazy. This season, we are tackling the perimenopause. They often call it the second spring. I think it should be called monsoon season. But I'm not doing any of this alone. In each episode, I'll be interviewing and talking to experts, specialists, and women going through it, giving you all the information that you need to make more sense of this chaotic period of your life. Today, we'll be talking to Hannah Walker. Hannah is a fitness coach and personal trainer. Hannah has helped hundreds of women by teaching them the science on how their hormones have an impact on building muscle mass and achieving fat loss. This is one episode you don't want to miss. Hello, Hannah, and welcome to Am I Crazy Or podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So you are who?
My name is Hannah Walker and I am an online female fitness coach with a sort of passion/obsession for female hormones and then how that impacts training and fat loss with my ladies that I coach.
Amazing, amazing. So I actually first found you on Instagram because my menopause doctor sent me one of your Instagram reels.
Yeah.
And it was so good. I was like, oh my God. So I sent it to everyone I know.
Thank you.
Can you just tell the listeners about what that particularly reel was about?
So it was one of my clients, actually. She messaged me on an afternoon and she said, oh, she's actually based in Abu Dhabi, but she was like, oh, there's a menopause chat on Radio 2. So I was like, right. So I tuned in and I was just a little bit like, okay, they're using all of these words that are suggesting that, HRT is massively overprescribed. They had a doctor on, they were discussing HRT. They were talking about the use of testosterone and how that's, exploded and I think it's gone up tenfold or whatever it was. But then I just thought, from my experience with all of my friends, family, and the ladies that I coach, HRT isn't that easy to get, and it's not being prescribed by every doctor to every woman. A lot of the women, really unfortunately, that I coach and that I know have had really appalling experiences with their doctors when they're trying to get HRT. Some are phenomenal and brilliant, and there are doctors out there who are great, but it does feel like there's a lot of GPs that just, I don't know if they don't know how to help or they're just unwilling to help. Like I had a lady go and she was told by her GP to nip this in the bud now. And I was like, oh.
What the hell?
What exactly?
Nip it in the bud?
Just nip this in the bud now. She's in her 40s and she has so many perimenopause symptoms and he just refused to help her. So I thought to myself, right, you're putting out all of these facts and figures, you're putting out all of these really evocative, sort of descriptive words that are, I felt like it was coming across like it was very scary. Like with no other medication, do we promote the usage of it in a sort of negative way? So I thought, why is it? Because it was overprescribed. Like that's a really bad thing.
Was that the statement? Like
it came across like that, I thought. So I thought, they've said on the radio show, 13 million prescriptions for HRT have been issued in the UK. So as somebody listening, I would assume that's 13 million women on HRT, just listening to those stats. So then I thought I'd do a little bit of research because they had all of these percentage increases and all of these numbers, but they didn't tell you for how many women. So I thought like, well, look, what is it in relation to who? In relation to how many? Because the women I know aren't, it's definitely not just handing it out.
Yeah.
So it's actually 13 million prescriptions. It's not 13 million women on HRT. It was 13 million prescriptions, so 13 million items. And if you think a lot of women per prescription, you're going to have, I don't know, up to 3 items, potentially 4. So that's not, what you would have assumed in 13 million women. And it actually referred to 2.6 million identified patients. So what they're talking about is 2.6 million women are actually being prescribed HRT, not 13 million. So it really was like, I just felt like it was misleading.
So far away.
Really
so what was that in a
misleading.
particular year?
I think it was all in around 2023.
And so 13 million prescriptions to 2.6
2.6 million women.
Okay, that doesn't sound like a lot. How
No,
many?
and it's not.
How many women are there?
So I looked it up. This is what I wanted to know. When I listened to it, I looked it up. And so I looked up the statistics on the Office of National Statistics. And I just looked up the age ranges from 40 to 59 because I thought that was roughly sort of HRT prescribing age, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think the radio show were talking about women... Oh, I can't remember the age range that they were talking about. But within the age range of 40 to 59 years... Within 2023, I believe, on the Office of National Statistics, you're looking at roughly 17.6 million women. So 2.6 million identified patients being prescribed HRT against 17.6 million women in the age bracket 40 to 59 years. That makes up 14.71%. So how is that being
overprescribed?
Yeah.
That's actually shockingly low.
Yeah, and if you just Google it, a simple Google will tell you that 15% of women in the UK of perimenopause and menopause age are being prescribed HRT. It's really tiny.
It is very small.
Why I get so confused when the wording is made out like, oh, it's overprescribed. That's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But HRT isn't bad. Like this, why aren't we looking at it in a really positive way of, oh my God, this many women are getting help, but do you know what? It could be so many more.
Yeah.
So many more women could be getting the benefits of HRT. They could be saving their relationships, their jobs, their mental health, their physical health. I'm not an HRT pusher, but there are benefits.
Yeah.
But we don't ever promote the benefits. It's always sort of comes out as a bit of a negative, and I'm not sure why.
And also I think this kind of attitude has really come into how women also think. Like I have friends that are going like, oh no, I'm going to try to deal with it without HRT.
Yeah.
Why?
You are not coming out of this with a badge of honour.
I
You are not going to get to the end and be like, I did it with no HRT.
But I got divorced and I'd quit my job. And...
No one's giving you a medal. Nobody cares. Like, there's just no reason to suffer.
Yeah.
So I feel a bit frustrated. The media loves a scaremongering story about HRT anyway. They love it. We don't want to help the women. Absolutely not.
I know.
Let's let them suffer.
But this is the shocking thing, I think. It's like when I first started taking HRT, which is like about a year ago now.
Yeah.
I didn't know what perimenopause was. I didn't know that this part before your menopause, which is technically just the one day you haven't had a period for 12 months. That's the menopause. Then you're
Then you're post-menopause.
Should be called
exactly.
meno finished.
Meno over it.
So fucking over it. But the really shocking thing is, as I started researching into it, obviously I came across the study where the kind of negative
Women's Health Initiative.
That obviously had such a big impact on how many women took HRT, but also the prescribing doctors of it were really hesitant to do it. But that is now turning around.
Yeah, it's still there. The fallout of that study is 100% still there, which I think is a massive shame. But it had, like, the impact was huge on a generation of women who could have been hugely benefited by HRT and went on to just suffer.
Yeah.
So,
and this is the thing that I think is super fascinating, because it's not only suffering through it, but it's the impact that it could have on your life later on.
Yes.
The benefits of HRT can have on what will happen later in your life, like osteoporosis or heart disease, Alzheimer's. There's so many things.
There is a lot now coming out about how it's so much more than just our reproductive organs. Like, the impact of our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone throughout our whole body is huge. But because they're called sex hormones, we really only see them as part of reproduction, and then the minute you're not going to reproduce, you're sort of invaluable to society. So therefore it's like, well, do we need to study that? Do we need to bother? No, they'll be fine. And then these women, like,
oh my
in pieces, like, trying to get through life with no hormones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also in that Radio 2 clip, there was something about testosterone, they said as well. What was that?
That made
That was even more ridiculous, wasn't it?
I mean, my ladies that I coach struggle to get HRT, let alone testosterone. This is like gold dust. And the majority of the ladies I know who have got testosterone have had to go privately to get that prescription. So testosterone on the NHS isn't licensed for perimenopause / post-menopause, but it is licensed for sexual dysfunction disorder. So I mean, I don't know what else declining testosterone levels are going to do in perimenopause other than affect your sexual function and your sexual desire and your, you know, that element of your life. It's going to have a really big impact, but yet it's not licensed for it. So you can get it prescribed by a private doctor who is going to explain to you that it's not licensed for what they're prescribing it for and sort of do their sort of covering themselves there. Or likely in perimenopause, you will get a blood test, your testosterone will be low, and then they can prescribe it to you for sexual dysfunction disorder. Then it goes back through your NHS, and then you get.
But what was the numbers that they gave on that show for testosterone?
So they were talking about women 50 years and older who were being prescribed testosterone, and they were talking about how there were 4,675 women who were prescribed testosterone, but they were talking about how it had increased tenfold and how the prescribing of testosterone had exploded. So again, I went onto the Office of National Statistics, and I looked, because they were talking about women 50 years plus, I looked at 50 to 59, because I figured that that's probably a good bracket of women to look at, and it could potentially be more women, which makes the statistic even lower.
Yeah.
So it was 9,148,143 women, so 9.1 million women. So if you look at the 4,675 women being prescribed testosterone versus your 9.1 million, you are looking at 0.05% of women in the age bracket of 50 to 59 years being prescribed testosterone. How is that an explosion? How has that exploded? Because I don't know anyone that can just go and get testosterone.
That is absolutely crazy. I actually... It blows my mind, like how easily also we listen to statements and believe them without checking. So well done you for checking, and also thank you for putting that out there, because it's really, really detrimental for people to talk about HRT or about anything in a way where it makes it sound like it's really bad, or and that just isn't the case. 0.05%.
0.05%.
Oh my God, that is nothing. But also that is obviously the reason. What might be the increase is that no one ever asked for it, and now one person will be 100% more.
Well, I think that's why they're saying, I think it rose 22% or something. But I think it's because we know, fortunately now, we have social media, and there are so many brilliant benefits to social media, and that there are brilliant doctors out there who are educating women, who are saying, look, this is actually what's happening to your body in perimenopause. This is the science. This is what you're going to struggle with. This is what you're going to suffer with. But this is what HRT does. These are the studies. These are the results. Like, these are your risks. These are your benefits. And women can then go to their doctors with that knowledge and with that education and with that understanding. And I think that's where it might be becoming an issue, because they've educated so many women, and these women are turning up to their GP surgeries. And then I feel like when women are educated and they're empowered about their own bodies, they potentially become a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So then they have all these women saying, actually, I need this. And it's like, ooh. And to a degree, these women are probably more educated on their own bodies, what's happening and what they need, than some of the GPs, because of the training in perimenopause and menopause that that people are being very honest about now is, I mean, it's minimal. Yeah. But I think is it a day? Is it a month?
No. I asked my menopause doctor about this, and they had 1 hour. Oh my God. In all of medical school.
And you think that just the
half of our life, 1 hour.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's unbelievable, isn't it? You wouldn't give 1 hour to any other medical situation.
No.
You just couldn't.
And especially because it impacts you for so long, and it has such a huge impact.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with testosterone, and what I now kind of know and realize, is that the impact that testosterone can have on, especially as you get older, on your muscles is so big. But obviously it's not licensed to be prescribed like that. And in fact, I have talked to a lot of my friends about this that have been on HRT for a while, and now realize that they still feel like bad brain fog. Yeah. That's one of the things that testosterone could help with, but also the muscle mass. You specialize in helping women that are in perimenopause and postmenopause, I guess, with their nutrition and their their exercise routine?
Yes. So within me coaching my women, I put a big emphasis on education. So they have the education on their nutrition, their training, but also on their hormones. So anything from naturally cycling through to birth controls, and also a lot in perimenopause and menopause. And I think as a fitness coach, you tend to attract like for like. Like, I'm not going to have a 19-year-old boy come to me saying, I want to step on stage, can you train me to be a bodybuilder? But because I am a middle-aged woman, like, I am relatable to other middle-aged women. So I have attracted, over the 10 years that I've been a coach, a lot of middle-aged women. And with that comes all of these hormonal changes. So I've just, over these years of training these women, I have learned so much. I have discovered so much. I have found out so much. And then I've started reading. I'm reading studies, books, everything. And I find it absolutely fascinating. But the more that we know, the more empowered that we can be. And also the more our bodies make sense. Because if you don't understand why everything's changing, or you're having a certain symptom, I think it can feel even more overwhelming. So I think having that knowledge, it really is power in terms of how can I best get myself in, or how can I get myself into the best position to manage this, to take this on, to tackle this. And it really is, for me, about building really solid foundations for my ladies, because it's like you're going into battle. Like, perimenopause is your battle.
Yes, that
you need a foundation of strength and good cardio. You need to build as much muscle mass and maintain as much muscle mass as you can. You want to keep your bones strong. You need good nutrition. You need lots of protein. You need all the whole foods, loads of water. And then you've got a good foundation to start, the battle from. Yeah. And obviously you need good sleep, but then that is going to be so dependent on your hormones. But you can do and put lots of things in place that are going to mean that you have a very good sleep routine, or that you're not going to be able to predict if you can stay asleep, but if you can get off screens an hour before bed, if you can do certain things where you can have good sleep hygiene, they call it, which I think is really strange.
Yeah, it is. So, so there's so many things I want to talk to you about with this, because as I kind of came out of my 30s and as I hit 40, I definitely noticed I was holding on to weight. It became harder and harder to lose any weight. Yeah. And to be honest, I've never been big on cardio anyway, but for some reason I thought this was the time to start running. I just hit 40. And if anything, I just felt worse with it. Why do women tend to gain weight in perimenopause?
So there's a lot going on, a lot in terms of the sort of stage in life that you're at, but also a lot of changes hormonally, and they do have an impact on fat redistribution and holding more body fat, but also holding body fat in areas that you wouldn't normally have held body fat. So it feels even more foreign and even more obvious. So our ovarian estrogen is called estradiol, and as this declines in perimenopause, your body starts to try and store estrogen another way, and we have a really weak form of estrogen in our fat cells called estrone. So your body starts to collect more fat cells in an attempt to kind of boost its estrogen levels. That's a simplified version of that situation.
I like simplified.
But that also gives you the fat redistribution. So estradiol is very much, let's store all of your body fat on your hips, on your bum, sort of lower abdomen-ish, because that is where you've got all your spare calories for the next pregnancy. It's like an evolutionary thing of that's where we're going to store fat on women, because it makes sense that then the energy's there for the next baby. It's all about baby making.
Yes, of course.
So then you lose that estradiol, and then your body's like, oh, hold on, we need to find a bit more somewhere else. And the fat cells tend to collect around the midsection. So you do have this big shift of fat in your physique, and it's a big confidence killer for a lot of women. And it does feel very hard to get rid of. But alongside that, you have a time in life where you are going to move a little bit less. As much as you feel like you're probably very active, you aren't. In our 20s, we probably went out clubbing for 5 hours a night at the weekend, but we don't do that now. There'll be a lot of added energy expenditure that we actually just don't have now. And also we lose our estrogen, we lose a bit of testosterone, and that is going to affect our muscle mass. Not overnight, but all of these things combined have a big impact on fat redistribution, holding more body fat. And then I think the time of life in your midlife that you go through all of these changes, you're likely, if you have a family, you are likely to have teenage kids or kids in their 20s. So you have a family who are, exploding with hormones because they're going through puberty. You are exploding with hormones because they're literally dropping out of your feet. And you're And then you haven't really got time to focus on you. And I think as a mum, it's incredibly easy to like, well, you just put yourself at the bottom of the list if you even get on that list. So then you're not prioritizing yourself, you're not focusing on your nutrition, you're not focusing on your training because you haven't got time because everybody else comes first. So I think it's this huge collection of all of those things that has a big impact on just women not being, well, feeling like they're not able to lose that body fat. And then because you've got all these changes and they're unfamiliar and they don't make any sense, you might try something. I'm not saying like a diet fad, but you might try a method of losing body fat for 8 weeks and then it doesn't work. And then you give up. And then you try something else and then you give up.
I remember trying loads. I tried
Did you?
I tried the 5-2 fasting.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Like and that had worked for me in my 30s at one point.
Yeah.
But I've now also realized that fasting is actually not very good for you when you're in perimenopause.
There's mixed reviews now. Like there's a lot of reviews that you can fast, but you can do it around your cycle. So you can be very clever with it and be very aware of like when you do need more calories leading up to your period, when you can cut back on your calories, when you're super energized in ovulation with your maximal estrogen and testosterone. But yeah, in terms of perimenopause, I'm not sure because your hormones are going to fluctuate wildly day by day. And they are declining. So actually, within that, it will be a very individual thing, I think.
Yeah, and also, like in my head, it's like if your body is already struggling to readjust where to store the fat or what to do, if you're then also starving yourself, it's like quick, give her really big arms, flabby ones.
It will just collect everything here.
Yeah, like it was just the most random thing. Like I'd always kind of had the same kind of figure and I'd be like, what the hell? It's like one of those things where you stick something and then it sticks out somewhere else. You're like, what the fuck?
I think as well your skin changes.
Oh
so
my
estrogen,
God, yeah.
Like the lack of estrogen really affects your skin. So it does things sag. And I always say that your skin gives you away. Like you could look, your body could look phenomenal, but then you put your sort of head on and you're like, oh, they're that kind of age. It does give you away. So that changes as well. Everything. Everything changes.
So in terms of like exercise and perimenopause particularly, what kind of exercises should we be doing, or is there a particular thing we should focus on?
The one that you enjoy is the most important.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is it sounds a bit cheesy, but you're going to keep that consistent. Like if you love Zumba or you love a step class or you love a pump class because you have the accountability to get to that class with those people and you love training with those people, that's perfect. Like there's a lot of, I don't know, like a lot of people like to be quite divisive with their exercise choice, but it doesn't need to be. Like it really doesn't. Like you do 100% want to be doing something that is going to strengthen your muscles. You need to maintain as much muscle mass as you can. You need to try and build as much as you can because we are at risk of sarcopenia with lack of estrogen and testosterone. You also want to be lifting weights because that in turn is going to strengthen your bones and then that helps with the risk of osteoporosis. So definitely do things that overload you, but whether that's body weight, that's banded, whether that's weights, like whichever one you enjoy out of all of that is going to be the one to do. But also lifting weights does make you a badass, but it makes you feel like a badass.
It does.
And it's that thing of like, if you tripped and fell and broke your arm, can you get back up off the floor?
Yeah.
Like, all of that stuff is going to sort of future-proof you. It's going to bulletproof you for old age. And it sounds a bit like, I don't know, it just sounds a bit sort of, a bit bleak.
Yeah.
Like, I have to train for my old age.
Yeah.
But actually, it's like the best thing you could be sort of investing in. And it's going to improve your posture, your mobility, and it's just going to make your life a lot easier as you get older.
Yes, because I think that's what you hear a lot with like, I know with elderly family members and stuff, there's a lot of women breaking their bones, breaking their hip. I don't know how you even do that, or like knees, or like there's a lot more. Women tend to be a lot more prone to breaking things. So having strong muscles helps, or is that part of it?
Yeah, like the muscles will help, but it's also that in training your muscles, you'll be strengthening your bones.
Yeah.
So our bones are a living tissue, and I think we forget that. And they have estrogen receptors in them, which I think is fascinating. So that's why, with the lack of estrogen, your bones become
Brittle.
well, yeah, just less.
Oh, I see.
Strong. So there is quite a scary statistic when it comes to fractures. That's 1 in 3 adults over the age of 65 will die within 12 months of suffering a hip fracture.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Oh
And then
my
there's
God.
the other one, which blew my mind slightly, because I read it and I was like, that can't be, it's so high. It's 40 to 50% of postmenopausal women will experience a fracture in their lifetime. So postmenopause, that's 50% of women.
Oh
It's really
my
scary,
God.
isn't it? Yeah.
And I don't think I have actually broken anything before.
No.
Yes. But so is there anything that we could do to avoid that? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, weight training, so as you strengthen your muscles, you are naturally strengthening your bones at the same time. There's going to be no sort of specific bone strengthening workout. Anything that loads the bones, which of course is also going to load your muscles, is going to strengthen your bones.
Amazing.
So yeah.
does HRT helps to strengthen the bones as well?
Yes, so you're replacing that estrogen. So as much as you're losing your estradiol, your ovarian estrogen, which is the thing that strengthens your bones, you are then, through the HRT, you're getting bioidentical estrogen, which is going to do that. So that's like one of the benefits, one of the many benefits of HRT, in that it will help, reduce your risk of osteoporosis, which is huge. I mean, if you're looking at a 50% fracture rate in postmenopausal women, it's
that
massive.
in its own. And if you think about like the actual impact that would have later on, like if you break something, and if like a fracture, that is properly breaking it. That's going to you're going to have time off work. It might be rehabilitation and so on. And then that also follows like feeling lower. Like there's so much more that goes with the fact of being in worse health and needing to recover.
Well, then you feel vulnerable, so you're less likely to do anything. You won't push yourself. You'll be scared. Like you hear of old ladies who fall in the bathroom and they're there for 3 days.
Oh my God.
Like it's horrendous. I don't want to be that lady.
No. Yes,
I want to be like doing chin-ups on the shower rail.
That's what I want to do. I want to be like strongest woman on the planet.
on HRT.
On HRT. So one of the things that I think a lot of women really struggle with, especially as we get into our 40s, we might have less confidence. So like one of the things that really put me off like exercising was I didn't want to go to the gym.
Yeah. It is a really strange place, the gym.
Yeah.
And I think unless you're up north where everyone talks to everyone in the UK, you can stand in the reception of a gym, I think, and you could strike up a conversation with someone at the reception, but you walk through those gym doors and then it's like...
Yeah.
And I think women particularly, and I could be wrong, but, I train women, it's what,
that's what you do.
Try to deal with, they feel like they are being watched and they feel like people are judging them and they feel like they're doing everything wrong. So having trained men in the past, like years and years ago when I was a gym floor PT, it was really interesting to me how different the mindset of a female and a male was in a gym environment. The men would always be like, yeah, give me some more weight, I'll give it a go. Didn't care if they failed it. Like they didn't care. They were just going to try it, fine. Didn't mind. Women were always so cautious. They were always a little bit more like, oh, but what if I can't lift it? And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, we're going to be safe about it. You're not going to get injured. It doesn't matter. But I think there's this fear that they are being watched and they are being judged, and that somebody, this is where the fear comes from, is that someone is going to come over to them and say to them, what you're doing isn't right, or oh, actually you need to do this. And so many of the women I've coached have been corrected in the gym by men. Unfortunately,
of course.
No woman will ever come over and correct you unless you are in absolute danger of like really hurting yourself in the gym. But men like to come over and correct women's form. And I had a client many years ago, and she had a lot of very individual biomechanical sort of issues that we were sort of made her do a low bar squat with elevated heels for so many things, that she had like issues with her feet and her ankles and just so many really individual things to her that we were working with and we were working around. And then this guy goes up to her in the gym and he's like, oh, actually, your bar needs to be loads high, you need to be much more upright, you need to be... And I was like, oh my God. Like, don't do this. Because then she was then really doubting herself. And I was like, we have given you a low bar squat for this reason. And you are a little bit further forward, like in your torso with a low bar squat. But you have to remember when you go into that gym, and if you are in fear of someone correcting you, if that person is not a trained personal trainer, or they are not they're not working for that gym. If they're working for the gym, they might be trying to neg you for some, like a client. They might be trying to like, get your business. But if they're not, they are incredibly uneducated, because as a PT, as a coach, I would never go up to anybody and correct them if I didn't know them. I don't know who they are. I don't know their exercise history. I don't know if they're rehabbing an injury. I don't know anything about that person. So to walk up and say, oh, you're doing this all wrong. Like, do it more like this. I don't know what their, I don't know what their biomechanics are. I don't know them. So if someone does come up to you and offer their wonderful unsolicited advice, you are well within your right just to say, no, thank you. Or can I just give you this advice? No, thank you. Like, good. We don't need to take it. But I think we're very used to being very polite in social situations and sort of like, oh, okay, thanks, and sort of humouring them. And it's like, oh, no, we don't have to do that.
No, exactly. And so is there any, so I also realised like what I eventually got a PT. So I actually only started properly exercising when I turned 40. And it was mostly also because I felt like I wasn't losing weight, and I felt like I was really unhealthy. And I tried the gym for maybe like 6 months, and I was like, I do not want to go there. I was dreading it. And it was really hard to get it within my day. So when I got a PT, it got a lot easier. But also I realized you can totally exercise in a tiny room.
You can do easily. Yeah. You don't need a lot to do a lot. The majority of the women I coach train at home, and a lot of them have a mixture of like 2 home workouts and 1 gym workout, because they'll fit the gym workout in when their daughter's at swimming for 50 minutes on a Saturday morning. But then the other ones they have to fit in at home, and a lot of them are like 30 to 40 minute workouts. You don't have to have that hour. Because one, it's psychologically difficult to like psych yourself up to find that hour. It feels a lot harder than finding 30 minutes. But if you find 30 minutes and you get going, you're likely to train for 40 or 45 anyway. Which is optimal. And
so if you wanted to start doing some weight training, I also think, especially when it comes to weight training, women, we feel a bit like, I definitely don't feel comfortable. Even when I'm on holiday, I don't feel comfortable going to the gym and picking up some again because of the fear. What can we do at home? Like, is there particularly like, what should we be getting if we want to start doing some exercise at home? Dumbbells or?
Yeah, I always think a set of dumbbells is perfect. If you could go anywhere that you can mess about with weights, find the dumbbells that you can push over your head for, say, 10 reps. And then those weights combined will probably be fine for 10 reps of a lower body exercise. So if you've got a set of dumbbells, then you've got like a total weight of them together, and then you've got half weight of them individually, and then that's actually very useful. And you can do a hell of a lot with just 2 dumbbells and like a couple of bands or something. So you don't need a lot to do a lot. And then before you know it, you'll progress through your weights and you'll need to get heavier weights. So the women I coach at home will be quite clever about what weight increments they buy next, because you don't have to go up in like 1 kg or 2 kgs. You can kind of jump a little bit. And then, if you say you've got 10 reps of overhead press, if you jump up your weight and you can only hit 5 reps of overhead press at your new heavier weight, then you do the final 5 at your lower weight, and then you push it up gradually that way. So, you don't need a lot to do a lot.
Exactly. So even just getting some dumbbells and doing some exercise out of YouTube is better than not doing anything.
100%.
Cool. So one of the things that I also found on your Instagram was about some other hormones that have an impact on perimenopause.
So some of them I feel maybe sort of elevated a bit in social media, especially cortisol, but insulin and cortisol do impact us. But equally, if you don't have cortisol, you won't wake up in the morning. So we need these hormones. And I think sometimes there's a bit of information that goes around about one of the hormones, and then people are, oh, that's it, that's why I'm not losing weight, that's it, it's that. But actually, we are finely tuned, finely balanced humans, and we do need things to be in the right balance. And if they're slightly out, of course, it can cause problems. But insulin, I think, when your estrogen starts to decline, you can develop a level of insulin sensitivity, which just means insulin is a hormone produced in your pancreas, but it helps your cells turn your food into energy. So it's basically like a little doorman. Like, it goes to your cell door and it's like, all right, mate, here's my mate, glucose, let him in. And like the cell's like, yeah, sure, he can come in. But if the cell's just a bit like, oh, I don't like him anymore, no, just go away, then your body just ends up with more circulating glucose. So it just means that your more inefficient at getting that glucose, your digested carbohydrate, out of your bloodstream and into your cells, which is predominantly your muscles and your liver. And that's where they get turned into sort of kinetic energy. So it's that we have that, and then we have more circulating blood sugar, and then it's the fallout of that can cause you to be sort of, it can affect your mood, because you're going to be sort of having higher blood sugar, and then when it does get stored, it's going to dip a little bit, and that's going to lead to sugar cravings. So having sort of low mood and maybe trying to cheer yourself up with your favorite food alongside sort of sugar cravings is going to potentially mean that you'll eat a bit more. So that's kind of where it leads to, but then it will get a bad rap because it's like, I might be insulin resistant.
Yeah.
But it's probably quite minimal.
Yeah.
But it will depend on your diet, it will depend on your activity levels, on your lifestyle, on all of those things as well.
So let's talk about diet, because this is also quite a big one. Honestly, like I knew already, like my actual cycle changes what I want to eat. Like the week before my period, I'm just like, give me some carbs. And I definitely have very different kind of eating patterns.
Yes.
So tell me a bit about what nutrition and the perimenopause. Is there specific things we should be eating more of, or what?
So I think generally our diets aren't optimal because we have access to so much food, and because there's so much food, a lot of it is heavily processed, it's low in nutrients and it's high in calories. So you don't have to eat a huge volume of food to consume a lot of calories, which is where I think the problem comes in, because you can sit there and just go, oh, well, I don't really eat a lot, because visually you're not eating a lot, but actually the calorie content of that food is huge. And it's huge in comparison to your energy expenditure. So it has to be like energy in versus energy out. And that is that science of fat loss is, it does transition through to perimenopause, but you obviously have the added level of complexity of the changes in hormones, and you're within the change of hormones and within, you know, the reduction of muscle mass. All of those things reduce your basal metabolic rate. So your basal metabolic rate they're referred to as your coma calories. So they're the calories that you need at 24 hours for complete rest just to live. So it's like for your heart to pump, your lungs to breathe, just for you to lie there. It'd be lovely. 24 hours. Yeah. Be a dream day. Yeah. They actually can reduce by up to 250 to 300 calories a day in perimenopause. Oh. So we do end up needing less calories. But it also comes down to food quality. Protein is a big one, and of course, like, you know, your energy expenditure, it all has to all be in balance. So it is very likely, and I see this with a lot of the ladies that I coach, that you will require less calories as you go through perimenopause. If you were to start training for an Ironman, it's likely that you might need more calories. Yeah. But it's going to really depend on your lifestyle. But it can definitely, I felt it in the last year. I know a lot of the women I coach feel it, that you do just start to hold this weight and you're like, whoa, like I haven't really changed anything. Yeah. And that can be your reduction in basal metabolic rate. So my overarching advice would be as much whole foods as you can in your diet, get in as many nutrients, every single ingredient food that you can, or every food that you eat, try and get the majority of them as single ingredient foods. If you can live by like an 80-20 rule, so 80% of your diet is whole foods, highly nutritious, lower in calorie, like nutrient dense, and then 20% you can have, you know, some gin and ice cream, you can have the treats. But if you can keep it in that balance, you won't go far wrong. But yeah, I think processed foods, heavily processed foods they just make it very easy for us to overconsume calories and not realise we've eaten that much. But protein is a big one. I've never had anyone come to me with a food log and their protein be like through the roof. Yeah. No one really naturally has a diet high in protein unless you are specifically trying to hit a protein target, which is what I give the women that I coach. Everyone says on a higher protein diet, they feel more energized, they feel better. Obviously, it helps just maintain as much muscle mass as possible, especially if you're trying to lose body fat. Having more protein in your diet is going to help you maintain muscle mass whilst you're in that calorie deficit. So protein is, I would say, key. It also keeps you a lot fuller for longer, and it also levels your blood sugar. So it has a lesser effect on your blood sugar, of course, than carbohydrates. So it definitely keeps you more leveled. So if you were eating a diet sort of carbs, you're going to have this increase in blood sugar, that's going to get stored, and then you're going to crave more carbs, you're going to have an increase in blood sugar, that's going to get stored, so you end up on this sort of roller coaster. Whereas if you have like a higher protein diet, you're much more leveled, and it's a lot easier to stick to a calorie deficit.
How much protein should we be having a day?
I go in at 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. So.
Oh, I see. So it's based on that. Oh, that's a lot of.
Because if you've got like a 5'2" woman who's potentially like 55 kg, and then I've got like a 6'1" lady who might be 70 kg, they're going to be quite different. Yeah,
of course. So it's based on, and so in terms of protein, is there a particular protein that's better for you when you're?
No, I mean, it's going to be one of those annoying answers of like, the protein that you enjoy eating.
Yeah.
But if you eat dairy, it's so easy. Like, it's so easy. There are so many like protein yogurts and protein puddings and like protein shakes. And obviously that needs to not be the majority, but they're really easy ways of under 200 calories or just bang on 200 calories to get in 20 grams of protein. But you want to try and get the majority from whole foods. Yeah. So like all the fish, all the meats. If you're vegetarian or vegan, it becomes a little bit trickier. But if you're a vegetarian and you can still eat fish and you eat eggs, then you'll be fine. Yeah. There are high protein breads now that you've got 11 grams of protein per slice. Like it's quite easy to like bump them up. It's just knowing what to eat and how to put it all together. So you don't need to be like eating steak for breakfast, lunch and dinner. I mean, that would be highly expensive.
Yeah, that would be real.
You don't need to wake up and eat chicken and broccoli. Like it can be really enjoyable and really nice. But yeah, it's just finding out the foods that you enjoy, where the protein lies in that, and then increasing the protein with also other foods that you enjoy.
Yeah. And I guess that's also tying into the whole building muscle. Muscle really needs protein to build. Yeah.
So your muscles can only feed off amino acids, and amino acids are proteins. So there are 9 essential amino acids, but we can't make them in our body. We have to eat them. But out of these 9 essential amino acids, there are only 3 that your muscles can use for food, but they are in all of the, natural proteins. They are in all of the proteins you eat. You don't need to be panicking about it doesn't contain the amino acid that my muscles need. So they just come within the majority of proteins. An egg, for example, is a complete protein because it contains all 9 amino acids. So there are 3 that your muscles feed on. So that's all your muscles feed on. So to grow your muscles, to repair them, to rebuild them after training, and to maintain them in perimenopause, then that's, you need the protein for that as well.
Okay. So basically, do weight training as much as you can. And I guess you need to continue building on it, not do the same weight for like...
Yeah, so it has to be progressive. You have to put into your training what is called progressive overload. So your body is so clever and your body is adaptive. So your body will adapt to its most frequent stimulus. And if one of your frequent stimulus is your workout, within like 6 weeks, you're going to be like, well, these are a bit light. And it's really clever because your body's adapted to it. And so many of my ladies say they order these new weights, they like drag them through the door. And then within a couple of weeks of training with them, they go to pick them up, like still thinking they're going to be as heavy as they were. And then they're like, oh, they're fine. So your body really adapts, which I think is, I love that stuff.
I love that. I was doing a session with my PT yesterday. My dad is over from Norway. And I was just tidying everything up afterwards. My dad's like, let me help you. And then he got my dumbbell. Not dumbbell, like the... Kettlebell. Yeah. And it's 10 kilo. And he's like, bloody hell, what the hell? And I was like, I'm strong.
I've had so many deliveries where they're like, oh, it's quite heavy. Do you want a hand in with that? And I'm like, no, I'm going to push that over my head. I'm fine. Thanks.
Yeah.
And it's like 14 kg. I'm like, thanks. But they're like, I always feel quite like...
And it's so nice, isn't it? Just to like actually be
really
able to be...
smug.
Yeah. It's so lovely to be like, it's such a nice feeling to feel strong.
100%.
I've actually finally connected with that now.
Yeah. I think it's quite life-changing. Yeah. Because I think the stronger you get physically, the stronger you feel mentally. Because you're like, actually... Like I could do that. If I can do that, then I could do that. If I can do that, then I've got the confidence to do that. And it breeds so much confidence. Yeah. And I think it helps to take you away from an aesthetic obsession sometimes. Yeah. I'm not saying we're all obsessed with what we look like, but I think it's been one of those things that society pushes as the most important thing on women is what you look like. And actually now when I train, I don't massively care what I look like because I'm like, I want better endurance. I want to run better. I want to lift that weight for that exercise. I want to lift that weight for that exercise. I want to push to those number of reps on that. Like, there's so much more performance-based goals now over aesthetic-based goals. And I think that's where women find their true power. They're just like, oh, I don't need to worry about like this little bit of fat here or there. Who gives a shit? I've got like, 20 kg over my head.
It's just such a power in it. And it like once that really connects with you, then it does. For me, I also have ADHD, so I know that if I don't exercise, it goes very quickly downhill. And for me,
does it get worse when you don't exercise?
My God. And it's so much worse. And also,
it's really interesting.
The menopause has the perimenopause has a huge impact for me. And how I actually got diagnosed was because I went into perimenopause.
That's fascinating.
And it was such a big crash, and I really struggled. And that also, like, exercise was such a big key in that for me of being able to think clear, especially in the part of my cycle where the week before my period. If I don't exercise then, my mood gets a lot lower.
Yes, because it's when you're even though you're on HRT, I have noticed this with a lot of my ladies. So you're taking your HRT, which kind of keeps your hormones here, but behind the scenes, you're still got your natural hormones doing their little thing. So you can definitely have those peaks in sex drive, drops in mood, like all of those things still go on sort of behind the scenes, which is something quite interesting I've found with a lot of the women I coach. It's really interesting.
So, I love that you kind of help all these women to find their kind of mojo back, because I do feel like you kind of lose it.
And do you know what it is? It's that having that accountability to somebody and having that support from somebody, and having someone tell you what to do that you then keep consistent. So I think it's really easy. Like I do it on social media with various other things, but you'll see a diet on social media. So you're like, okay, that's the one. Then you'll see another one and it's conflicting to that one. And then you're like, oh, do that one. And then you're like, well, that doesn't work. Maybe I go back to, oh no, there's another one. So it's really hard. But when you have someone being like, right, we're going to do this and we're going to keep it consistent and it's going to be sustainable. And my overriding advice is, if you cannot do that thing for the rest of your life, it's not going to work. So you have to be able to like train, on average 3 times a week. Perfect. If they are 30 minutes, 40 minutes, that's perfect. If you can get in like 3 hours to 4 hours a week of training, optimal. But if you are a mum working full time with teenage kids, with younger kids, like, this has to be realistic, and it has to be something that you can do for the rest of your life. And it's the same with your nutrition. That has to be sustainable. It has to involve holidays. It has to involve meals out, but it has to be something that, you're not going to make separate meals to your kids and your family. I mean, that's not going to last.
No, exactly. So be kind of realistic with it, and then do what you find interesting enough, or that you like enough, enjoy enough.
I find it really interesting actually that they have now linked those, or they have recognised now there's an increase in ADHD symptoms with perimenopause. I think that's going to help so many women. I think it's in its infancy of that being, obviously, something a GP who has no education on menopause would recognise, but I think the fact that the information is getting out there is amazing. I did a ADHD 6-week kind of workshop course with this professor at Oxford who specialises in women and ADHD. Oh, that's amazing.
And she has some really interesting information. Like, she also diagnoses, and she's mostly diagnosed women in teenage years or perimenopause.
Wow.
Because the hormones have such a big impact on the ADHD.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, so.
And that's the thing, we have puberty and we have perimenopause. So we have like 2 really major milestone events of hormonal chaos.
Yeah, exactly. If someone is listening to this and well, hopefully someone is.
Fingers crossed.
So in terms of perimenopause and exercise and diet, if there's only one thing that someone would do in terms of exercise and one thing to change with the diet, what would you say?
I would say training, introduce weight training. I would say that would be that is your most beneficial thing that you can do for your muscles, your bones, your mind. Makes you don't know, it like does something to your mind.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. And then nutrition wise, I would say just increase your protein. Even if you don't even look at your calories, if you increase your protein, you are going to be fuller and you are going to naturally reduce your carbs and your fat intake. And they are not bad. You want all of your macronutrients. You want to consume all your carbs, fats and proteins. But by increasing your protein, you are going to be obviously helping your muscle mass. You are going to be helping just remain fuller. You're going to be eating a little bit less, which is going to help with your fat loss. And it's, that would be
okay.
the two things that I would say.
Great. I love that.
Eat protein.
Yes. Amazing. It seems to be a lot of chatter on the socials at the moment about how doing cardio could actually increase your belly fat because it increases cortisol.
Yeah, I get loads of messages about this. It's really interesting. It's another one of these things that I feel like has been picked up and blown up a little bit, and is possibly, if you're struggling to lose body fat, you might be like, I think that's it. I think it's, it's high cortisol, it's this, it's that. But people have linked it to high intensity exercise, like HIIT workouts and running.
And so it's almost like, if you do this cardio, it's going to raise your cortisol. That is going to hold on to your belly fat, and you'll never be able to lose belly fat. Like, you'll never be able to lose your spare tire in perimenopause. But it's relatively inaccurate. Cortisol, if it's elevated for a long period of time, that is through chronic levels of stress. Yeah. Exercise is acute levels of stress. And if you recover well from it, your cortisol will just return to normal levels. And we need cortisol, like I said, to wake up in the morning. We need these cortisol sort of peaks and troughs, like, to live, essentially. So that it's not bad, but because it is a steroid hormone and it's considered our stress hormone, I think you are going to feel a lot more stress in perimenopause. So you are going to think like, well, hold on a minute, maybe this is something that I'm suffering with. But one thing I've definitely said in a video before is how many middle-aged women, triathletes and iron women have you seen that are obese? Well, none, because they have incredible diets. They are training incredibly hard. Their energy output is great. Their muscle mass will be great, but equally they are stressing their body to extremes and they aren't holding body fat. So it's just not the sort of beast it's being made out to be.
Yeah.
And it is a difficult one because cortisol does trigger your liver to release glucose in like a fast acting kind of energy burst, because you might need it in a stressful situation. And that obviously that happens when you're exercising, but they are like acute bursts of cortisol, and they won't be long lasting, and they won't have long lasting effects. From everything I have read to date, it's not going to be the reason that you are holding.
That's it. I think that feels a little bit like wishful thinking. Yes, the world is telling me if I run, and I don't like running.
Oh God, I can't do
that.
Damn it. Yeah, and it's also when you don't really understand the changes in your body in perimenopause, and not in a detrimental way to anybody, but you look for answers, and that kind of makes sense as an answer. So you're like, oh, well, maybe it's that. But it's very unlikely to be that.
Yeah, it's more likely to be stress related, as in mental stress. That increases cortisol a lot. I know for sure my body, and I don't know that kind of muscle tenseness you get when you get really stressed out. That's it's so uncomfortable, isn't it? And that can't be good for you. But again,
and then that comes down to mood, and then it's like, are you then comforting yourself with a drink at the end of the evening? Are you then cheering yourself up with your favourite meal? And drinks and favourite meals aren't going to be broccoli and water. They're going to be higher in calories. It's just the mix of everything. I think.
Oh my God, talking about alcohol, I get drunk on 2 glasses of wine now. I am smashed.
No, so many minutes. And I think there must be something to do with the way that we metabolize alcohol in perimenopause. I need to read more on it, but so many women are just like, I can't drink anymore, that's it, I'm done. Like, it's awful. You feel awful.
And like the hangovers are bad, really bad. But it's all like, it shocked me more when I was like, why am I to start with, I thought people were spiking me left, right, and centre. I was like, sure, I can be drunk. I had 1 glass of wine.
I had about 6 vodkas the other night, and I didn't drink for 5 years, like not one drop of alcohol for 5 years.
Oh my God.
I've had I've gone out and had 2 or 4, and then had 6 of that. I was still drunk at 4 p.m. on Sunday.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I was still I haven't had a hangover, but I was like,
it's coming. It's just deadly.
So yeah, I'm not sure what that is, but your digestion does get affected by your hormones though. So it's potentially related to the hormones and how you're digesting it. And
yeah, of course. A lot of my friends have decided not to start HRT, but go down the supplement route. Is that what's your view on supplements and perimenopause?
it depends which ones.
Yeah.
Because there are, and I just hate this because people are making money out of people's insecurities and you know, lack of knowledge essentially, but a lot of people are peddling supplements that are basically going to be a little bit useless. So I've looked into the research around, can you increase your estrogen levels through eating phytoestrogens in foods like soy? They're very high in sort of similar estrogen compounds. They're obviously not the same, but the science is completely out in terms of like, they don't know how much you need to eat in terms of like, and it doesn't do the same thing in your body. It doesn't, you know, you're digesting a food. It doesn't have the level of impact that your ovarian hormones do. So you hit perimenopause, and that is when women go through a complete shutdown of their reproductive system, and nothing that you take is going to make you produce more eggs, which is going to make you produce more estrogen. Like, it's not like, nothing will boost that. The only thing that will boost that is, of course, hormone replacement therapy by taking a bioidentical estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, if you can get hands on it.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of the supplements, I fear, just make a lot of money for people and don't potentially help women. I mean, there can be potentially a placebo effect attached to a supplement, but if you are going to take anything, I would 100% recommend like the basics. So look at your vitamin D, make sure your iron levels are in check. You would need a blood test for that, because low iron, especially if you're in your late 30s, coming into your early 40s, low iron has very, very, very similar side effects to perimenopause, and they're almost identical. So it's really interesting. So if you are a little bit younger and you're like, Jesus, I'm really itchy, I've got night sweats, my brain, like, where is my mind? Like, I've got brain fog, I can't pull myself together. Like, you're dizzy when you stand up, you're out of breath when you walk up the stairs. Definitely go and check that isn't low iron. Yeah. I would say make sure you're getting enough calcium in your food. Magnesium is brilliant. That is a good one for bone health. And one of the ones that has come up now is creatine. So creatine is very good for women in perimenopause. But I would take the supplements individually for that individual thing. And just remember that they are a supplement. So they have to supplement an already very good diet, an already brilliant foundation that you are sat on of nutrition and training to take on your perimenopause.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the kind of conversations I've had with other women, is that in my view, taking a supplement that might help you to feel more energetic and stuff doesn't do the same thing as HRT in the long run for reducing osteoporosis or heart disease, etc.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not just for the now that we're taking it, for the future as well. So for me, it's a clear, I definitely wanted to go on HRT, and it's made a huge difference to me.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah. And also I have lost weight finally.
Yeah.
Also one of the like exercising and eating healthy actually works for me again.
Yeah, I think a lot of my ladies find that. A few of my ladies start HRT and then they feel like the fat gain that they were experiencing actually like halts. Yeah. And then they can start to really help themselves, like lose a bit of body fat. But there's so much to it, isn't there? Because before you go on the HRT, if you're really struggling with symptoms, especially like low mood, low energy, like it's just almost impossible to get yourself into a good place with training and nutrition. It makes everything a lot harder.
It definitely does. And that is the mental kind of symptoms. I had no idea was going to be this severe.
Yeah.
So I didn't thought.
Yeah. Like, we're not taught. We really not. Well, neither were the doctors.
Yeah. Turns out no one knows.
So I think with the supplements, you just have to think, someone might be like, oh, it's this new cholesterol. And you're like, what the hell is that? But it's not going to give you any more eggs. It's not going to make you produce any more hormones. So I would look at your foundations, look at your training, look at your nutrition. And if you are struggling, then 100% have a look at HRT. Yes, HRT comes with risks, but it also comes with huge benefits. And alcohol comes with a cancer risk. Being obese comes with a cancer risk.
Yeah.
You know, holding more body fat comes with risk of several cancers. So drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
So I just think there are so many risks associated with things that we do every single day and we don't even think about it. But Radio 2 aren't there chatting about the risk of alcohol and cancers.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure they're going to do it at some point.
Yeah.
But, you know, we get in our cars every day. There's a risk associated to that, but we still drive because we need to. So I just think it needs to be put into perspective of the current research with the bioidentical hormones.
Yeah, for sure. The difference of how I feel from this time last year is so huge. I am not even kidding. I have done more in this last 6 months than I've done for 3 years before that.
Yeah.
Because I was so low on motivation, mood, and energy. And I now really cannot understand why one wouldn't consider one, going on an HRT, really taking exercise serious, diet serious, and it's entirely possible to have a menopause that isn't horrific.
Yeah, and it's but it's the last third of our life, and they're saying that you know, so many women are living in worse health in the last third of their lives. And I think with all of these things, if you were just to flip it to men, say that men went through, you know, full shutdown of their reproductive organs, so by the time they hit potentially, you know, mid-40s to mid-50s, they'd had 10 years of their testosterone like dropping through the floor. But taking testosterone as a supplement for their hormone replacement therapy, not as a supplement, but for their hormone replacement therapy, could potentially give them a 1 in 1,000 increased risk of testicular cancer, which HRT is for women with breast cancer. They would take it. And it would be a matter of course. It would just be like, oh, you've got to that stage in your life, pop to the doctors, have that conversation, and that would be it. That would be it. But like there wouldn't be radio shows saying testosterone use has exploded. Like it. I'm like, just help the women.
Yes.
Like, we've got the research, we've got the studies, we've got the knowledge, we've got the medication. Like, you don't need to suffer if you don't want to. I understand it's such an individual decision, and I understand that it has to be based on an individual medical history, but I get really annoyed at the fear-mongering that goes on with the press.
Yeah, and also, I also find it almost frustrating that many women think that they should suffer. Thinking about it this way, like it usually happens. The perimenopause start anytime it could even start at 35, but like usually after like 40 is a real chance that you're starting to go into that part of your life. But this is the time of life where we usually, you know, we have slightly older children. We've spent, or like if we have kids, and if we've spent all those 30s and maybe late 20s raising a family, getting a career, and you finally get to your 40s and you should suffer?
Yeah.
What? No. Why would you do that?
The time of your life. You're like, oh, I can do this now for me, and I can do that now for me. And
fuck this shit. I think we should actually stand up for ourselves and say, no, if we don't need to suffer, then we shouldn't.
And I think women, like, there might be some sort of fear of like being an empty nester, but I'm like, oh my God, you've just got all this time. Like, you can go and do whatever you climb mountains. You can go and do all of this stuff. But like you say, like if you're in a worse place, like mentally and physically, but you have the option and it's safe for you medically for that option to take HRT and sort of improve all of that stuff. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's all going to change.
I think it's beginning to change. I'm hoping for like my daughter's generation, it will just be a matter of course.
Yeah.
I'm also going to get her a blood test for her hormones in her 20s, because what I love so much are the blood tests that have a normal range. Because they're like, well, whose normal range is that? Because we don't know my normal range, do we? Because I tested it when I was 20. So I just sort of think, if in your peak fertile years of your 20s, you'd had a blood test and you could be like, oh, you know, actually I was incredibly high in estrogen and progesterone or whatever it was, and then you have this normal range comes in, you could be sort of middle of that normal range, but you might have started at there. So your hormones have dropped significantly, but compared to the normal range, so I'm just annoys me.
Exactly. Like, and that's such a important thing for anything with your health. There's like, What is normal for you?
Yes.
And if you do suddenly feel different, and this is the thing I hear the most from women I talk to, is they describe as, I just don't feel like myself.
Yes. Yeah.
And you should listen to that, and actually go and explore, read about it, and
I think one thing I find really frustrating is when women come to me and they're like, I've got this, and this, and I know it's perimenopause, I've got all these awful symptoms, like it is having the most negative impact on every area of their life, but they went to a doctor and they got completely dismissed, so they think that was their option.
Yeah.
And then they start to believe that, maybe I am exaggerating it, maybe it isn't that bad, but it's like, no, just step aside, get another doctor.
Yes.
I think it's so bad, but we have also been brought up to, respect that person in the medical profession, and they know the most because they're qualified. But I feel like now with this world of social media where you can access, obviously there were so many negatives to it, but you can access, trained professionals who are giving out advice, and you can go and access studies, you can go and access the research. We have access to all of this knowledge. And actually we can then say, do you know what, that you can't treat me like that, you can't talk to me like that, I'm going to go find somebody else. So just keep trying. Like if you have been shut down and you're sat there like suffering, like, there are women who, especially like vagina, I'm in so much pain, and you're like, you wouldn't leave a man like that. Like, there's no way a man would be like, and like go to the GP and then just be told, it's that time in your life, just have to sort of thumb it in and get on with it. Like, it's not going to happen.
No. This has been such a great interview. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. And I can't wait to see your next Instagram reel, because they're really fucking funny.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hello again. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. I would really love to hear any feedback you might have or comments, or maybe you have a suggestion to a topic we should cover. You can get my email on the website or send me a message on Instagram. Please do follow the podcast and maybe even leave us a 5-star review. It really helps to get the message out. See you next week.
Questions echo in my mind, searching answers can't seem to find. Is it me or something more?